You already know something is off. You've been working harder than almost anyone around you. You've read the books, you've watched the videos, you've taken the notes. But your business is still not growing the way you imagined it would, and the worst part is, you can't figure out why. You're doing everything right, at least everything they told you to do, so why does it feel like you're spinning in place while other founders seem to just explode overnight? I want you to stop for a second, because what I'm about to share with you is not the polished version of the story. This is the version that successful founders never post about. The version that doesn't make it onto the highlight reel. The actual mechanics behind scaling fast that most people will go their entire entrepreneurial career without ever discovering. And if you stay with me through this entire video, something is going to click for you, something that has been missing this whole time. But first, real quick, if you're someone who is serious about finally breaking through, we have a program linked down below in the video description. The people who are in it right now are moving. They are not waiting, and honestly, if you're on the fence about it, that hesitation alone might be the very thing that has been keeping you stuck. Just something to think about. The link is there when you're ready. Now let me take you somewhere. Imagine it's 2 in the morning. You're sitting at your desk. The glow of your laptop screen is the only light in the room. Everyone else in your house is asleep. And you're there, staring at a spreadsheet, trying to figure out where the money went, why your revenue flatlined, and how much longer you can keep doing this before you have to have the conversation you've been dreading. The one where you admit that maybe this isn't working. That feeling right there. That quiet, suffocating moment where you're questioning everything but you don't want to say it out loud because saying it out loud makes it real. That is the moment most entrepreneurs live in. Not the failure, not the success, the in-between. The grinding, uncertain, invisible middle. And here is what nobody tells you about that moment. The founders who made it out of that exact same place did not escape it by working harder. They escaped it by understanding something fundamentally different about how growth actually works. Let's break this down. The first thing successful founders never talk about publicly is that they stopped selling to everyone and started obsessing over one specific person. Not a demographic, not a customer avatar with a fake name on a whiteboard. A real, specific, painful human problem that they could solve better than anyone else on earth. When you try to help everyone, you help no one. The market can feel that. Your messaging becomes watered down. Your offer becomes generic. And generic does not scale. Specific scales. Painfully, uncomfortably, almost awkwardly specific is what makes people feel like you read their diary. And when someone feels understood at that level, they don't shop around, they buy. Most business owners spend months trying to broaden their appeal to capture more customers. What actually works is the opposite. The narrower you go, the faster you grow. That sounds backwards, but the data behind the fastest scaling companies in the last decade shows it consistently. Pattern interrupt. Here is what the cost of not doing this looks like in real numbers. Let's say you're converting at 2% right now. You change nothing about your traffic, you change nothing about your price, you just get radically specific about your messaging. Industry research shows that highly specific, emotionally resonant messaging can increase conversion rates by anywhere from 60 to 300% depending on the niche. That means the same number of people seeing your offer could generate 3 times the revenue. Not by doing more, by doing it differently. Now here is where it gets deeper. The second thing they never reveal is that they built systems before they built scale. This is where most people get it catastrophically wrong and it costs them everything. You've probably seen it happen, maybe you've lived it. Business picks up, suddenly you're getting orders, getting clients, getting attention, and instead of it feeling like victory, it starts to feel like chaos. You're dropping balls, you're letting people down, quality is slipping. And the very growth you work so hard for starts to feel like the thing that's destroying you. That is not a growth problem. That is a systems problem. And the difference between a founder who hits a ceiling they can never break through and one who scales from $100,000 to $1 million to $10 million is not talent. It is infrastructure built before the load arrives. The founders who scaled fastest were not smarter. They were not more connected. They did not have more starting capital in most cases. What they had was a set of repeatable, documented processes that let them hand things off without things falling apart. They had a business that could run without them being the bottleneck of every single decision. And you know what is heartbreaking about this? Most people reading entrepreneurship content already know they need systems. They know it intellectually. But they keep pushing it off because right now there is a fire to put out, a client to chase, a problem to solve. And tomorrow becomes next week and next week becomes next year and the ceiling stays exactly where it is. The cost of delay here is staggering. Every month you operate without systems is a month where your time is being spent on things that should cost you next to nothing to execute. If your time is worth $200 an hour and you're doing tasks worth $15 an hour for even 3 hours a day, that is nearly $100,000 a year in opportunity cost. Not money you're losing, money you're simply never making. Pattern interrupt. Let me tell you what happens on the other side. There is a founder who is barely holding it together at $50,000 in annual revenue. They could not figure out why they were working 80-hour weeks and still not getting ahead. They implemented one core system for their client delivery process. 1. Within 90 days, their capacity doubled without adding a single hour of work. Within 6 months, they crossed $200,000. Within a year, they were at $500,000. Not because they hustled more, because they finally stopped being the only gear turning in the machine. That story is not unique. It is almost universal among founders who break through. The third thing they never say out loud is that they made offers that were almost impossible to say no to. And this is the one that stings the most when you hear it, because you might be sitting there right now with a genuinely incredible product or service that the market barely knows exists. Here is the brutal truth. A mediocre offer with brilliant positioning will always outsell a brilliant product with mediocre positioning. Always. Without exception. And successful founders understand this at a cellular level. They don't just sell things, they engineer desire. They understand that people do not buy products. People buy transformation. They buy the feeling of what their life looks like after. They buy relief from pain they've been carrying for longer than they want to admit. When you sell features, you get comparison shoppers. When you sell transformation, you get believers. And believers are the ones who become loyal, who refer others, who stick around long enough for you to build real revenue. The shift in how you frame your offer, going from what it is to what it does to a person's life, can be the difference between an offer that barely survives and an offer that scales itself. Pattern interrupt. Now I need to talk about something that most entrepreneurship content completely ignores: the emotional reality of trying to scale. Because let's be honest with each other for a moment. This is not just about tactics and systems and conversion rates. This is about your life. It's about the years you've already poured into this, the relationships that have been strained, the sacrifices that nobody outside your own head truly understands, the times you almost quit and didn't, the times you went to bed not knowing if you'd made the right choice. That weight is real, and nobody gives you a medal for carrying it quietly. But here's what I want you to hear. The fact that you are still here, still learning, still looking for the missing piece instead of walking away, that is not stubbornness. That is the thing that separates the people who eventually figure it out from the people who stop just before the breakthrough. And the missing piece is almost never what you think it is. It is almost never that you need to work harder. It is almost never that you need more motivation. It is almost always that you need someone to show you the specific path that maps to where you actually want to go, with the blind spots identified, the sequence correct, and the strategy built for the reality you are actually living in. Not some generic playbook that was written for a different business in a different context. The founders who scaled fast had one thing in common above everything else. They got the right information in the right order from people who had already done what they were trying to do. They shortened the timeline dramatically, not by being exceptional, but by being smart about whose map they were using. Most people spend 3 to 5 years figuring out through trial and error what could be learned in 3 to 5 months with the right guidance. That is years of your life. Years of stress, years of opportunity cost that compounds in the wrong direction. Pattern interrupt. And here is the thing about information. More of it is not the answer. You do not need another podcast, another book, another free resource to consume and feel productive about. You need traction, you need implementation, you need to feel the momentum of things actually moving. That is completely different from learning, and this brings me back to where we started. Because everything we have talked about today, the radical specificity, the systems, the offer engineering, the strategic sequence, it all sits inside a framework that the fastest scaling founders have been using while most of the entrepreneurship world is still debating surface-level tactics. We have a program linked down below in the video description that takes everything we just covered and puts it into motion for your specific situation. People who have gone through it are not dabbling, they are scaling. And the reason I need you to hear this clearly is this. If you leave today having learned something but doing nothing with it, in 6 months, you will be exactly where you are right now. Maybe more frustrated. The window to decide is always smaller than it feels. The people who are not ready to change will click away right now. And that is okay, honestly. But if something in this video made you feel seen, if something shifted even slightly, if that 2 in the morning version of you is tired of staying stuck, then the link below is the next move. Not tomorrow, not when things are more stable. Now, because things become more stable when you do the thing, not before. The breakthrough you have been waiting for has been waiting for you to decide. Go make that decision.